Hello YouTube, welcome to my model railway channel here on YouTube, and today we have a new model to review. Now there's been a few reviews on this already. This is the Rails of Sheffield Terrier, which has been long awaited, first announced in March, I think it was 2018. This one is the Gipsyhill or ex-Gipsyhill Terrier in its London, Brighton, South Coast Railway livery numbered 643, and the item number is 4S-010-009. This is of course in the umber brown livery. So of course this model as well was part of the James May TV series. I think it was Trouble in Model Britain or something along those lines, where it followed Hornby trying to revive its fortunes, as well as Rails of Sheffield, who were also going into the game of trying to make their own Terrier, which Hornby picked up on and decided to rival, as it's been a long time product in their range. So this has taken a little bit longer than Hornby's, which has been out for over a year now, and they've released a couple of variations already, and also have gone back and updated the tooling to improve it and push it on a little bit further. So as I mentioned, this one is from Rails, made by Dapol. I don't know if it's commissioned or just in partnership with. It does say on the box it's in partnership with, but we'll have a look at it, be fair, and we'll have a look at it. Now, Rails have banged on various forums and on that TV series, this is the pedigree terrier. So is it a pedigree terrier or is it a dog's dinner? That's the question. From various comments and feedback I'm seeing on various forums, some parts are right, but some parts are wrong, unfortunately. Don't know why. They're saying compromise, but if you're going to do a pedigree terrier, there is no compromise. You must get it right the first time round. So let's have a look at this model and give you some technical specs. So this model is DCC ready. As noted before, the product code is 4S-010-009 in its burnt umber or umber brown livery with LBSC. This is the ex-Gipsyhill version. Now all these models have a die-cast running plate, so metal running plates, also have metal wheels as well. They have a 5-pole skew wound motor, and they are DCC ready, which means they will take a chip, which I believe is a Next 18 decoder socket on board, which is a slightly newer decoder, which are around these days. You can also buy these DCC fitted and also DCC sound as well. So in the cab we have a reasonably detailed interior, but not a lot of it is painted, which is quite surprising. The dials on the back or on the gauges are printed. You might be able to see that in this footage, but none of the gauges or pipe work or anything in the cab is painted. It's just completely black, including the reverser handle, which if I turn it around you can just about see in the background. Separately fitted handrails, of course, which are silver, but not overly blown away inside this cab. And also worth noting that the ones that don't have a Westinghouse pump are also missing the vacuum brake, which is mounted on the side of the cab. So unfortunately they've just installed one type of cab throughout the whole range, which is a little disappointing, but you know, again, another compromise. On the back of the cab we have some nice lining, and on the bunker we've also got some separately fitted lamp irons in some places, some of it moulded on. Also a nice number on the back buffer beam as well, nicely printed. But the slight disappointment for me on the tooling side of things, the cab is sort of made in two pieces. So you've got the main cab, but the back of the cab, like this section here, this is a separately fitted item. So it compromises the look of it in a way. I mean, the finish is also slightly different to the other areas of finish around the model. And also this is quite dirty in terms of how it's been painted. There's quite a lot of imperfections in the paintwork, and if I tip it backwards you can also see a nice join line which shows up terribly on the white roof. It's quite disappointing, but I'm sure someone with a little bit of filler can sort that out and paint it over in white. Also some nice lining on the buffers as well, on the buffer shanks I should say. That seems quite nice, and overall it's nice flushly glazed. The glazing just sits in the window itself rather than a big strip of clear plastic in the back of the cab like the Hornby one for example, but still it's let down by that massive mould line. The wheels and the steps are nicely decorated in the umber black. Of course the wheels are actually cast metal or machine metal. I imagine it's probably cast. Nicely painted. The connection rod between the wheels is nicely painted as well. The steps nicely fitted going up to the cab. That's actually quite nice. And also something which is right on this one, although Hornby have retooled their chassis, is the actual guard irons on the front. A little bit more correct than the first lot from Hornby, but as I say, it's been retooled and has now been sorted. Again, going around to the front, we've got some nicely fitted detail, handrails, smoke box door dart, lubricator pots, and also some nice buffers, not sprung of course, and a printed number on the front of the buffer beam which looks quite nice. So the running of this 5-pole motor seems reasonably smooth, but it is quite noisy, which is surprising. Hornby's mechanism is actually a little bit quieter than this. It's driven to the rear axle, but overall it is quite noisy, which I'm quite surprised about. So it's important to note on this model that it is not a totally new start from scratch model. From what I've seen, it's been scaled down from the 7mm Dapol Terriers, which have been around for a few years now, which have been a good price point and also quite good if you're trying to get into 7mm or O gauge. So they've been scaled down from that, but unfortunately that has left a few problems. There's a few areas which are still overscale. In my view, the brake rigging is a bit thick. The safety valves on the top of the dome are a little bit too high. But the main concerns I had on this model were the putting together, or the quality of its being putting together. I've had a few Dapol models in the past which haven't quite lived up to expectations. Interestingly, as I noted, this model has a die-cast running plate and also metal wheels and also a metal heavy chassis, but interestingly it's actually 10 grams lighter than the Hornby version and also a millimetre shorter in length. I'm still trying to get to the bottom of whose is correct on that side of things, but it's certainly over a millimetre shorter, which is quite interesting, so I'm going to have to look at that a little bit. Other features on this model, it's also got a firebox flicker, which isn't too noticeable in the sunshine which we have here at the moment, but I'm sure in the dark it will be, but it does seem to be set quite high up, so I might have to have a look at that and see if I can bring it down a little bit or try and reflect it around a little bit to try and get a little bit more into the cab. There's a nice amount of separately fitted details like the condensing pipes and also a really nice turned copper chimney cap for the chimney, which isn't on the Hornby version, it's painted, but still it's a nice little feature. Is it worth the extra 30 quid? Probably not, but it's a nice extra feature. The livery is quite nicely applied to this model. It's a sort of off-white kind of gold colour. I know if somebody mentioned that a preserved example has a kind of off-white, really sort of white lining to it, but you never know in these days if the preservation's got it right. And also we're working from black and white photos when we actually look at these models. But overall, the livery is nicely applied, nicely shaded. The pump has some really nice pipe work around it. However, I'm hearing from a well-known circle that the pipe work is incorrect on it. It's not the correct type or the correct installation that is seen on the pictures of 643. So that unfortunately is a compromise, but that is how it is on the 7mm version, as stated before. So to summarise then, this ex-Gipsyhill, London Brighton South Coast A1 Terrier, is it a Hornby beater? Unfortunately, looking at it across the range, there are too many errors. It's a nice model, don't get me wrong, but I have seen some issues with some others, and I'm seeing the same issues on this as well. The paint finish on the rear is shinier than the rest of it. It's a bit strange. There are bits in the paint on the rear as well, also that's not great. The interior of the bunker, you can see it's been oversprayed from the sort of creamy interior, which is not great either. Some of the fitting of components like the back of the cab doesn't blend in well and doesn't line up with the surrounding plastic, and that's a problem. Other things, it's lighter than Hornby's, which I'm surprised at, considering. It's 10 grams lighter. This is 100 grams. The Hornby one's 110, 111. It's got some nice details, nice separately fitted, turned details, very nice. The printing's good. But on the other Terriers across the range, the BR ones, I am seeing some quite big errors. And it's annoying because the fact is, these, as I've mentioned, have been scaled down from the 7mm versions, which are actually not too bad. Okay, it's still got the cab errors and various bits and pieces which are missing in the cab, but the smoke box door number plate is too high on the 001s. The O-gauge ones are correct. The coal rails on the O-gauge ones are correct, but the coal rails on the 00 version are too small, and it's a bit strange. I don't know why they didn't see that or look at photos. I spent 5 minutes on Google and found photos of, for example, I think it's 661, ending in 661, with a photo of it straight square on, and also the rear of the bunker as well, and they all were too small, too high, and it's a question mark who was looking and doing the research for these Terriers to make sure they were correct. The liveries, as I say, nicely applied. Details great. You know, the firebox flicker, I don't think it's needed. I mean, mine, I can't really see. It's either been shoved up a little bit too far in or whatever. I might have a look at that in the future. But it just seems the toys and the shiny bits have overtaken some of the airy areas in the range. But overall, as I say, scaled down from the 7mm Terrier, some bits have been left behind in the scaling department. Other variations, the BR ones, coal rails, bunker, smoke box plate, air pipes fitted on a vacuum model which hasn't got an air pump, odd. Cab missing the vacuum brake equipment as well, so it's just a standard cab they put in there, not one that's actually looked at. And of course, all these things cost money, and it's a lot of compromise. And on mine, the paint finish is a bit strange on the back. It's not been cleaned very well before painting or finishing, It's more of a gloss on the back rather than a satin. Strange. But overall it's not a pedigree terrier, and when you've come out with fighting talk saying we're going to be better, we go back and retool it, we'll do this, we'll do that, and then when it arrives it's not like that at all, and it's strange, very strange. For me, £110, it's on the hefty side for a small model. We usually expect to pay about £100 these days for a small model, especially a commission like this, or a partnership like this, I should say. I mean, Hornby have shown they will go back and retool bits and pieces to improve it, which is nice, but you know, Rails have been left behind over the last 2 years, I think, in terms of development of this model. It's a shame. Things let it down, like the back of the cab and how it joins up with the rest of the cab. It's not really what I expect to see on a £110 model. But that's my view. It's honest. It's what I've seen. I've seen also models with glue marks on them, which is a shame. I hope people who have models which they're not happy with get them returned and sorted out. But overall, not worth £110, I'm afraid. Sorry to say that, but it's not. The long-awaited Terrier of the year, it's not, unfortunately. I'm not paid by anyone, so I will give you an honest view. I'm not a friend of Rails of Sheffield. I'm not associated with them, and I will give you a frank, honest review because I'm not sponsored or paid by anyone to do so. I hope you've enjoyed this review. It's a little bit longer than I usually do, but I hope if you do have one of these you will enjoy it, and hopefully you won't stare too much at the inaccuracies of this model. But overall, not bad, but it's not pedigree. So it's between a dog's dinner and a pedigree, which you can make that one up anyway, I don't know which one. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the review. Happy modelling, stay safe, and all the best to Rails for the South Eastern and Chatham D-Class, which will be out at some point in the next 2 years probably. Bye for now.